What does it take to be a 21st century politician? My name is Madison Staten, and this is a question I have been asking myself for a long time. It is my dream to one day obtain a law degree and eventually run for public office. I've been politically active in the past. I organized a voter registration drive at my high school during my senior year, and I was able to register 100% of my senior class. That service made me eligible for the Honorary Secretary of State position down at the West Virginia Capitol, where I spent the day with HONR, WV's Secretary of State, and learned the ins and outs of his job. The inspiration for this project came to me when I considered that today's politicians once had aspirations similar to my own, and they were able to make their dreams a reality. If you want to know more about something, it's best to hear it from the source. So, I decided that my creative project would be to interview some of today's current politicians and ask them about their careers as well as how they work to obtain them. Preparing for an interview is harder than one might imagine. First, I needed to do research on protocols for conducting an interview. I used Stanford's NCPI Student Assessment Toolkit to learn more about the protocol of conducting interviews. This outline gave me insight as to how to address interviewees when describing the process, the types of questions I should be asking, and how to get the most thoughtful responses from those participants. I had to figure out who I wanted to interview. I visited the West Virginia Legislature's page and found a list of all of the state senators and delegates currently serving, and selected a mixture of people from different political parties, of different backgrounds, and from different geographical locations across the state. I compiled a list of about 15 questions I hoped would give me an accurate look into their opinions on their jobs and the climate in which they work. I offered to conduct live Zoom interviews or to have them respond to my questions in a written format, hoping to make it a little easier to get responses. I then wrote out a draft email to send to the legislators, and with the help of Dr. Brigandy, sent an email to different public officials on February 18, 2021, sat back, and waited for responses. And waited, and waited. The part about studying politicians is that, well, they're probably some of the busiest people on the planet. Some people I heard back from relatively quickly, such as State Senator Patricia Rucker. I sent her team a list of my questions, and they promised to have them back to me by March 8th. However, when that Monday rolled around, I had nothing. Others, like Delegate Larry Rowe, reached out to me via phone. Delegate Rowe told me that while he respected my curiosity and hoped to see a great community servant of me in the future, he would not be participating in the interview if it was, quote, too complicated. When I sent him the questionnaire, I never heard anything back, so I guess my questions were a little too complex for his liking. I faced many bureaucratic hurdles as well, seeing as I spent a lot of time talking to staff members rather than the legislators themselves. I had some nice emails back and forth from a woman at Congressman Mooney's office. I got to have a brisk conversation with the front desk woman at Delegate Jeffrey's office when I made a follow-up call, and she promised to leave a note on his desk, but that was the last I heard from them. I even received a call from a gentleman named Matthew Donnellan from Congresswoman Miller's office, who gave me some advice of his own. Mr. Donnellan warned me that getting into politics too young was not a good idea, and that I had a lot to learn before I could even consider political activism. While he did promise to speak with the Congresswoman about my project, his disheartening advice did not help me to score an interview with Miller. I even got a scheduled Zoom interview set up with Delegate Caleb Hanna, but on the day of the interview, this was all I got.
This is Madison. It is 2:45. I was supposed to have a meeting with Delegate Hannah today for my project, and he's about 15 minutes late. I guess this would be a good way to show that, the bad thing about politicians is they have really weird schedules, so I guess he was unable to meet with me today. I'm going to shoot him an email, and we'll see where it goes from there.
After a few weeks, I was feeling pretty defeated. I had no one lined up to interview, and I was really worried about the viability of my project. Then I received a stroke of luck with an email from Senator Shelley Moore Capito's office, where I was told Senator Capito was willing to complete my questionnaire. I forwarded the questionnaire to them, and within a week, I had answers. I was over the moon because even one list of responses could save my project. A few days later, I got 2 phone calls. One from the office of State Senator Richard Lindsay, and one from Delegate Danielle Walker, who both agreed to sit down for a live interview on Zoom. my interviews, I asked the legislators questions about their backgrounds, how their gender or political ideology affected their careers, advice they had for young people, and how they managed to run their campaigns. All in all, when asked what the worst part of their jobs were, all three pointed out that the bipartisan atmosphere in politics today was truly the worst aspect of their careers. Senator Capito commented that the current gridlock in the United States Senate has made the decision making process incredibly difficult. She insisted that, quote, working together with members from both sides and finding common ground and compromise when we can is what we can and should be doing to deliver results for the American people. Richard Lindsay, a Democrat, felt similarly to Capito in terms of partisanism among the legislature, but felt that West Virginians themselves were actually quite nonchalant about political differences. So I understand that you are a Democrat, and I wanted to ask you what it's like to be a Democrat public office holder in a Republican-led state.
Well, it depends, right? If you're talking about what it's like to be a Democrat in a Republican legislature, um, that's been difficult this session. I've been in session, or I've been part of the legislature now as a senator for the 8th district here in Kanawha County. This is my third year. We had when I was here my first year, we had 14 members. We're now down to 11. That loss of 3 makes a big difference. My first 2 years, we could work on things together. We can get some things done. I felt like I had a hand in shaping the policy. This year, now that we're down to 11 and the Republicans have a supermajority, it's very frustrating because there's not much we can do to stop their agenda. And I personally disagree with a lot of what they're trying to do. They didn't run on it. And so it's not like it's been supported by the people in any way, shape, or form. Now, being a Democrat in a Republican population, I don't think it's that bad, to be honest with you. I think West Virginians are unique to the extent that if you sit and talk to them and listen to them, it doesn't matter what your party affiliate, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. People just want to be heard, and I think that's more important than anything else.
Delegate Walker, who is also a Democrat, felt a bit different about how her party affiliation affected her campaign, but she was also insistent that she is not just a Democrat. She is a voice for all West Virginians.
People would come up to me and say, what are you running as on the, what are you? I said, a candidate ready to represent the people of West Virginia.
It's true that partisan politics have taken over today's political climate. A Vox article written by Lee Drutman describes how America is stuck in a, quote, doom loop of mutual distrust, end quote, and how toxic partisan politics have become the norm. Drutman describes how the political left is demonized by the political right as they degenerate our founding Christian nation and want to secularize everything. They want to sacrifice our sovereignty to the globalist institutions under the guise of invented problems like global warming, and to undermine our exceptional heritage by opening the borders to anybody, even those who want to blow us up. On the other hand, the political right is demonized by the left because they see Republican leaders like former President Donald Trump as un-American. Quote, his xenophobic, racist rhetoric stands in opposition to the true American vision of tolerance. It is an affront to our nation of immigrants, a country in which equality is written into our founding documents. Any Republican who supports or voted for him is guilty by association, end quote. Partisan politics is seen as disrupting the way our American government operates, both by citizens and by our own political leaders. Both Capito and Walker also commented on how their gender has impacted their political careers. Delegate Walker felt that being a woman impacted the way people viewed her as she was running her campaign.
Well, it has tremendously. When I put my name on the ballot, I was written off. Who was going to be home to take care of my children? How sexist? Was I going to be strong enough? Could I even, as a woman, ask people for money? So it really put a different light, like women have to solicit for equality and equity, and that's disgusting. I had some like donors with some other candidates, and I felt because I was a woman, I would get less donations. When I became passionate about something, it was don't show your emotions. If I cried at an event, it was don't do that. If my children attended with me, some folks even tried to put them in the background.
As a woman who plans to have a family and also plans to have a successful career, Walker's comments on her family life being questioned really resonated with me. Comments like hers about having to hide her emotions to not seem fragile are things that I have experienced myself. Capito also commented on how her gender hasn't impacted her career, but seemed to feel less attacked than Walker when it came to others' beliefs on her gender and her career. She wrote that when she was first elected to the West Virginia House of Delegates in 1996, far less women were involved in politics than they are now, but she didn't let that discourage her from representing her community and fighting for the issues important to her constituents. Capito was the first female to be elected to the U.S. Senate from West Virginia in 2014, and she notes that in her opinion, quote, "when women get involved, we get things done," end quote. Capito has done a lot of work with younger generations of girls and getting them involved with the things that inspire them. In 2015, she launched the West Virginia Girls Rise Up program. She writes that, quote, "I've taken this program all across our state where I visit with female students, usually 5th graders, and we have a conversation about the importance of physical fitness, self-confidence, and education. These are what I believe are the 3 pillars of success," end quote. The answers received to running a campaign from my interviewees opened my eyes to the process. Specifically, Senator Lindsay had some insight on the key things needed to run a successful campaign.
But in running any type of campaign, just like anything else in life, the more effort you put into it, the more successful you're going to be. And so anyone who's running for office or decides to take up a cause, it's not enough to, post your opinions on Facebook or write an op-ed. You have to go and talk and meet people and tell them who you are and what you believe and why you believe it. But the key to any campaign is just putting the time in, putting it in, and having a plan, having benchmarks throughout the cycle, how much money you have to raise by the end of the first month, the second month, the third month, when you're going to decide to do, what type of advertising you're going to do, whether it's going to be TV or direct mail, and when you're going to do it. All those decisions just depend upon, the specifics of whatever the campaign is. But in all campaigns, you just have to put that time in, and it's a sacrifice on your part. If you have a family, it's a sacrifice for them, because you just have to log those hours and walk those miles.
This advice is similar to that of the advice presented in the NGPVAN blog that I read about how to successfully run a political campaign. Having a solid communication plan, creating a brand identity, and going out and talking to the people you're working to represent are key factors in being able to run a campaign. I also felt that it was important to ask my interviewees what advice they would share with young people like me interested in politics.
What advice would you give to young people interested in having a career in politics?
It's never too early to get involved.
What are you waiting for? Join a campaign. Make a list of what moves you. After you make that list, find some organizations, look at their mission, attend some of their meetings. Is not what you're looking for? Then you start strategizing, you start organizing, and you start mobilizing. Speak to other elected officials. For every time someone tells you no, you find 3 actions that you are proving yes. And put your on the ballot.
In conclusion, this project gave me some useful information about the road that lies ahead of me, with all of its challenges and opportunities. Being able to interview these fine politicians was truly an honor, and to hear them describe their own experiences doing the thing I aspire to do was truly humbling. It was my hope in the beginning that this documentary would help me to understand my future path, but it also gave me a greater respect for those who work every day to make my voice as a West Virginian heard. Now, I would love for this documentary to make those who watch it reconsider the way that they view politics.
To my younger self, stop saying that you are not political. You walk on the sidewalk, you are political. You shop in a grocery store, you are political. You pay sales tax, you are political. You file income tax, you are political. You ride or drive on roadways, you are political. You fight for social, environmental, women's reproductive rights, you are political.
Mayor Capito gave me some great advice. Don't be afraid to take the plunge. And this goes beyond myself. It goes beyond my dreams. My generation is well on its way to the real world, and if we don't start paying attention now, how can we ever hope to run this place? Politics isn't a dirty word. Partisanism divides today's Washington, and it is my goal to make future Washington a place where government isn't demonized, but it speaks for the will of the people, just as it was intended to.